Welcome back to the Addison edition. First, please like, share, and subscribe. Second, from this point forward, every episode of the show will be dedicated to those who were murdered and stolen from us since October 7th, and to the heroes who have fallen fighting for our survival. It's our responsibility to keep their memories alive. Today's episode is dedicated to Tzachi Idan, age 49, a high-tech professional and passionate Hapoel Tel Aviv superfan. Tzachi was kidnapped from his home in Nachal Oz on October 7th and slain in captivity on December 4th, 2023. May his memory be blessed. Now, welcome to this edition of the Addison edition.
Well, for me, it started off, the indoctrination started off well before there was any sort of educational process.
In a polarized world, especially around the topic of Israel and Palestine, I am honored to introduce a man who converted to Islam from his Christian upbringing just to leave the mosque and have a profound awakening. He has become one of the staunchest supporters of Israel and the fight to combat anti-Semitism. If you haven't been following him yet, you will after this. I am proud to introduce Michael Gamal, the Coptic Zionist. Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm baffled by non-Jews who want to fight for the Jews and want to fight for Israel. And I know people try to separate the Jews from, people will say Zionism is not the same as Judaism, but I think they're completely wrong. How do you view this this whole, I would call it misinformation?
I mean, there are 613 mitzvot in Judaism, and one of those mitzvahs is to settle the land of Israel. It is literally, a commandment from, I'm not a religious person, so I'm just sort of, Gentile-splaining Judaism, but it is a commandment from God to the Jewish people to live in the land of Israel. And the Jews have had a 3,700-year continuous presence in that land. I have to look at Zionism as a fulfillment of Judaism. I cannot separate the two. I feel like when you defend Israel, by default, you are defending Jews, and I cannot separate the two.
Where are you getting all your information from? Knowing that there are 613 commandments, knowing that one of them is to settle the land of Israel. How did you end up diving into this? Because it's one thing to fight for the Jews and be like, yeah, they can have their homeland, but to actually know where we're coming from, I think that's on a whole different level.
So that specific piece of information, I actually read it from David Friedman's One Jewish State, which is right here. So that's, I got that information from there. But then I also read a lot of Dr. Einat Wilf. I read a lot from Ben-Dror Yemini. So I'm somebody who I educate myself daily on Zionism, Israel, and I have to sort of do that. And if I want to be able to articulate and defend Zionism the best I can.
So what was the specific thing that shifted you? I've heard your story, and I would like to get into some of your story, but I'm really curious as to, was there a piece of information that you read? Was it just October 7th that kind of pushed you over the edge? What was it that really made this click and this shift into, I don't hate these people. I don't think there's a reason to hate these people. I want to fight for them.
Man, it's, I had these moments throughout my life where I knew that I was sort of sacrificing my humanity and my integrity and intellect to pushed the Palestinian narrative. Following October 7th, like I wish I could say that it was October 7th that did it for me, that like pushed me off and I, went and fought for Zionism and Israel, but that wasn't the case. October 7th happened and it took me until, May to sort of bow out of that realm of politics. But I'll tell you, the first moment after October 7th came a few weeks later in the month of October. I was in San Diego with my then girlfriend and a bunch of our friends. We were sort of like bar hopping in downtown San Diego, and we, we're walking and we reach a red light. And I can't remember what it was on, but as I was at the red light, I was looking at posters of the hostages. They were posted somewhere. And I'm looking at the poster, and all I can think about were the videos that I had seen online, I think in New York, where people were actually like defacing the posters of the hostages. And I had this thought in my head, where I literally said to myself, you might be a piece of shit for supporting this cause, but you're not such a piece of shit that you're going to deface the poster of a hostage. But then, that felt like it lasted for, hours, that moment. It was probably like 5-10 seconds. And then I went on with the rest of my night, I was partying and drinking. So I didn't think anything much of it. But then going forward, as the information started coming out, you find out that they had tied girls to trees and mutilated them, raped them. The type of stuff that I'd heard about October 7th, I'd only ever heard that type of violence in one other setting, which was the Iraqi Civil War, following the U.S.-led invasion. I mean, the way that the Iraqis butchered one another, it's the only thing that I can find as a comparison to what the Gazans did to Israelis. And I say Gazans specifically because it wasn't just Hamas, it wasn't just the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, the Al-Qassam Brigade. It was Gazan civilians who participated in this. Even I think the people who kidnapped the Bibas family, I think they were Gazan civilians. So I'm sort of well past the point of just pinning this on Hamas as if, there's a major difference between Gazans and Hamas. I think the people who don't subscribe to any sort of extremism in Gaza, I think it's statistically insignificant. The people in Gaza that don't support violence against Jewish people. But then, it was starting to become like to be able to advocate for the Palestinians. It felt like I was trying to hold on to burning coals, like it was only a matter of time before I had to let go of it. And there was just I found myself being more and more disgusted with the advocates for the Palestinians. The way they would act, the things that they were saying out in public, and the way that they were justifying things. And the fact that I had to, sort of go along with it, and I hated it. It felt so disgusting to me. And around May, I had just, I can only really use the word burnt out, right? But it's so much more than that. It was like, if I went on with this anymore, then I was going to lose whatever little humanity that I had left. So I felt like I was literally choosing between my humanity and carrying on with the cause. But initially I thought, okay, you'll just sort of silently exit this realm of politics. You'll be one of those people that don't care and you're not going to pay attention to it anymore. That was what I thought that I would end up doing. And then the following month in June, Noah Argamani was rescued. And I remember being at the gym when it happened and looking at my phone and getting the notification. And by this time, I had scrubbed my personal IG profile from anything that had to do with supporting Palestine. So Free Palestine in my bio, took that down. Every post I ever made about Palestine in my bio, took it down. I scrubbed it clean. And then No Argamani was rescued. And I remember like my initial reaction was, oh, this is great. Because why wouldn't you want hostages to be rescued, right? And then 30 seconds later, I went from happy to angry because because my friends were still all either Arab or Muslim still. So my social circle, I would still see the propaganda. And I remember I saw this Palestinian comedian, Sami Obeid, and he made a post and he said, if I'm ever held hostage somewhere and you have to rescue me, and you have to, kill X amount of people to do it, just leave me there. And I was like, get the fuck out of here, bro. This is the most like disingenuous shit I've ever heard in my life. I remember being so mad that I had to read that crap because, I got my little dog with me right now. If my dog was kidnapped, I would burn down the whole world to get my dog back. I wouldn't give a shit about sparing anybody's life. Like the world is going down in order for me to get my dog back. So I can't imagine what I would do if my mother, my brother, a relative, a friend of mine was kidnapped. Like I would want vengeance, like you wouldn't believe. And that's a very human emotion.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't understand how people can't put themselves in that situation. Like if you're someone who's a father and you have a son or a daughter and they were kidnapped and your family was killed, like you can't put yourself in the imagination of, no, I would burn the world down to get them back. Like, what are you supposed to do?
The thing is, when you feel that Israel is the ultimate evil, and that is the conclusion that you have come to before you do any sort of research, before you do any type of reading, studying the conflict, when you reach that conclusion before you educate yourself on the conflict at all, you don't have to put yourself in their position, because to them you are the personification of evil. So I don't have to put myself in that position because you're already evil. So whatever I do to combat you is already just, that is what goes on through their minds, which is why you hear things like no normalization, there's no such thing as an Israeli civilian, this and that. Like that is the pro-Palestinian cause in a nutshell, is that you are something uniquely evil. And then the next month, and we are actually just coming off the 1-year anniversary of it, was the Majd al-Shams rocket attack, missile attack from Hezbollah that killed, I think, 11 or 12 kids, Druze kids, for that matter, in Majd al-Shams. And by this time, I had actually made a couple Israeli friends through Omegle, and we had talked, there's one of them, she became very, very close to me. And she is originally from Haifa, although she was living abroad at the time when I met her. And so Haifa, an area that gets pummeled with Hezbollah rockets. And her friend was from Majd al-Shams, and so he knew some of the victims of that attack. And seeing how distraught my friend was about her friends, it was the first time where I had like a personal connection to Israeli suffering. And it was sort of the same ordeal as with No Argamani, but it's like the difference was No Argamani was rescued. There was an operation. It was pretty black and white. With the Majd al-Shams attack, the other side was able to try to distort the reality. And I saw them immediately try to do that. So what they started saying was that it wasn't a Hezbollah rocket. It was an errant Iron Dome missile that hit those kids. And so I had to do my research then and there. First off, El Mayadeen, Hezbollah's news affiliate, took credit for the attack prior to the information coming out about the kids that were killed. So they took credit for it initially. And then once they found out that they killed a bunch of kids, then they rescinded it and started blaming Israel. So then I had to research, okay, let me check out what the Iron Dome missiles look like. And they are Tamir missiles. They are made with regular shrapnel, not made to maim or injure or kill. It's made specifically to take out those rockets in midair. It has a much lighter warhead than the Hezbollah Falek rockets. it's just completely different. And I looked up instances of when an Iron Dome rocket misfired, and the only instance that I could find where it actually caused an injury was like it landed, I think, like near a construction site, and it was like a grown man suffered moderate injuries. It's just not enough to kill that many people. Whereas the Hezbollah missiles, they are specifically made and they are heavier because they're trying to maim and cause as many casualties as possible. And I remember I was going on pro-Pali influencers pages and just, sharing that information, and I got blocked from like 6 of them. And so that was the first time that I ever stood up in defense of Israelis. Like, I was doing what I was like, it was the first time I'd ever advocated on behalf of Israelis. And that took me to where I am today, although it was not without its ups and downs.
Is this, you said you had to educate yourself. From your story, you gravitate because of your Arabic background. I know you're born in California, but your family's Egyptian?
Born in Massachusetts, actually.
Born in Massachusetts. Okay, so for the people who may have not,
That's why I got the Boston tattoo.
Boston, I'm a Phillies fan.
Yeah.
Get out of here, man! Don't me. Did you know that the Eagles won the Super Bowl? By the way, if you didn't know,
I was supportive of that. Because I didn't want to see
Mahomes win again.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, he can't do this to Brady.
Well, me as an Eagles fan, we appreciate that.
Yeah, I have to support the Eagles.
So let's give our viewers a little bit of background about you.
So I was born in Massachusetts to Coptic parents. They had been here for quite some time. Well, my dad had been here since like the 70s. But I was born in 87, and then 2004 I moved to California with my parents. And when I moved to California, like, I got here around the end of my junior year in high school, and I basically finished my senior year here. And entering college, it was actually the first time where I'd met like other Arabs and Muslims. In Massachusetts, I felt like I was the only one there. I swear to God, man. Like I was surrounded by so many white people, I thought I was white until 9/11. And then they all let me know, oh, hell no, you Arab. You know? they let me know so quick. But then I also got to lose all my white guilt about slavery.
Thank God.
Baruch Hashem. So I was like, oh, it had nothing to do with me. Then I found out, it actually had a lot to do with me, because the Arab slave trade was way worse. But so then when I finished high school and I entered college, I started meeting a lot of Arabs and Muslims, particularly Palestinians. And so that's when I started to learn about the narrative. And because I didn't really have any information that would, contradict that, I just took it, because why would they lie, right? That's what you think. But then you also hear their stories.
I'm sorry, but why? If you Coptic is a sect, is the Egyptian sect of Christianity, yeah?
Yeah, it's like Egyptian Orthodox, basically.
So why gravitate towards the Muslims?
Because it was an Arabic-speaking background, and because even though my parents had like made several comments about Islam and Muslims, me growing up in the West, I was like, oh, my parents are just bigots. They don't know what they're talking about. It's different in America. It's really not that different, though.
No.
And so I wanted my parents to be wrong about everything that they had taught me. Like, my parents used to always also tell me, like, you probably shouldn't trust the Palestinians. It's bad news, right? Which sounds horrible. Like, if a Western person hears me say that, it sounds horrible to them. But I've literally heard this from every other non-Palestinian Arab, is that you can't trust the Palestinians. So it's not just my parents who say this, it's plenty of other people. But again, I am an arrogant kid who grew up in the West that never lived a day in the Middle East, although I had visited quite a bit. And I wanted my parents to be wrong. So I went with it. And I was like, well, I have this background, and they're first generation just like me, and we grew up with the same music and movies and stuff, which we did. We actually did grow up with those same experiences. So it was an easy transition for me. And at the time, like, they weren't like outwardly religious, like they weren't super religious. I mean, all my experience with substances, all my first time was with Arabs and Muslims. First time,
All my first
smoking
times were
weed,
with
first time
Jews.
getting drunk. Yeah, my first time doing shrooms, coke, ecstasy, weed, like all that was Arabs and Muslims. So, it's not like it's not like I was hanging out with the mosque with them all day. But you identify or you're looking for a tribe to identify with, and you feel like this matches you the most because of your upbringing. And so I went with it, and I didn't really ask a lot of questions. I took it for granted that this is who I would be surrounded with forever, right? Like I had taken for granted, like, oh, when I get married and when I have kids, these people are going to celebrate with me. They're going to be at my wedding. They're going to be waiting at the
Yeah, you
hospital for
feel like
me
you
for
found your people.
yeah. And so I never imagined that one day I would feel differently. Um, and then, the year of 2024, 2023 going into 2024, it just, it was tough. And like, I gotta be honest, man, like, if it wasn't for my dad, I don't know if I would have changed my mind. And I say that because, a few weeks after October 7th, my dad called me. And he's, talking to me. He's like, listen, I'm hearing about some of the stuff that you're posting, and I'm worried about you. I feel like you're heading towards a really dark place, much darker than you've been in before. And I would like to meet up with you for lunch or something. And I met up with him. And, like, I wanted to go into the pro-Pali denial, where it's like, no, they didn't do all these things that are being reported and blah, blah, blah. And you can't trust the Israelis. You can't trust the media that comes out. The Zionists own the media and all this. And my dad just like said it to me straight. He's like, Habibi, they raped women. They butchered families. This is not, like, you're not the type of person who's going to support this. No matter how extreme you got, I know that you're not this type of person. And, the people that you're with, he's like, I don't want to see you going to these protests and ruining your life and all this. And he's like, and he told me, like, what Hamas did, like, is going to set Gaza back 50 years. And Gazans have nobody to blame but Hamas. And that, like, actually sat with me and stuck with me. For some reason, hearing it from him was different than hearing it from anybody else. And so it made everything from that point on, it was a bit easier for me to absorb it and let it resonate with me. And then it got to the point, man, like, where I was like, these people who I thought were my people, they're not my people. These values, these beliefs that I had, these aren't like this isn't me. Like, and when I would go over like things in my life, right? Like, where I was sort of put to the test, are you this type of person, that type of person? Like, I had encounters with Israelis before that, and like nothing crazy. I just mean, like, you bump into one at like a club or a bar, like in LA. It's not uncommon to do. And looking back at like my interactions with them, like, I remember when I would meet them and when they would find out I'm Egyptian, I would find out I was Israeli. When they would find out I'm Egyptian, I would find out they were Israeli. The first thing that would go into my mind was, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable around me. I don't want them to be afraid of me. And so I tried to, like, I made small talk or whatever, but in my head, it's always, an individual can be fine, but you keep in mind that the collective operates as a collective. And so you don't change your beliefs. But compare that to, like, if somebody meets an Israeli right now who's Arab, Like, there's a good chance they go off on that person, like a complete stranger. And to me, that's always crazy. It's crazy back then. It was crazy to me now. And yeah, man, I was somebody who I wasn't. I had to sacrifice a lot of who I was to support this crap. And it's been like, since like the last year, I feel like I've sort of been like recollecting who I was prior to that. And I'm a curious person. I'm inquisitive. I like learning. And when you're in the Palestinian advocacy space, it stifles a lot of that because they don't want you to normalize with the other side. They don't want you talking with the other side. They don't want you asking too many questions about your own side. You know, anytime you have a question that like might where the answer might present the Palestinians in a bad light, it's like, oh, you're it's Zionist propaganda and bullshit like that.
Yeah, having a kind of a first row view into it. Can you give me an insight into the education process of how they educate their side to this, what I would think is madness?
Well, for me, it started off like the indoctrination started off well before there was any sort of like educational process. So for me, because I'm Egyptian and I was very, very close with my fellow Arab and Muslim friends, like you are getting like sort of their stories directly from them. So like my friends would tell me, yeah, my parents were refugees. They got kicked out of this and this village or whatever. And that's how it starts off. And then they'll sort of like share documentaries or like YouTube videos. And then that sort of escalates to you reading books from Edward Said or Rashid Khalidi. And then that also escalates to Noam Chomsky, Norman Finkelstein, Ilan Pape, because now that you have these Palestinian academics telling you this, now what you really need as an insurance policy is for Jewish and Israeli academics to sign off on that BS. And that's really how it forms. And then, of course, there's sort of like the community activism. And that's where it reaches its most extreme, is the community activism. Because when they say by any means necessary, they mean it. So by any means necessary means they are not above lying to spread their message. And they lie a lot. Like in one way or another, they're always lying or telling a half truth. They're omitting something. They're not providing the context. And I remember like one time and it was so bad that like I couldn't bring myself to share this video. But I remember one time there was a video of an Israeli soldier or policeman, maybe like, I think he like kicked an Arab woman, right? And so the context, the way they show it to you is, look at this IDF soldier abusing this Palestinian woman in hijab, right? But then when you watch the whole video, this woman tried to stab him. So it's like, yeah, I would have kicked her in the head too.
Why,
and then of course there's the Jesus is a Palestinian and all this dumb crap.
Yeah, it's. I find it really I find it interesting that we are living through a time where we're seeing history be rewritten in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand, like, what separated you from these people? Why doesn't the lie get to them like it got to you?
Well, I knew a few facts about the conflict, right? So no matter how you try to present the conflict, there's a few facts that are never going to change. One of those facts is the Arabs rejected the partition plan in 1937. They rejected the partition plan in 1947. Then they declared war on the newly found Jewish state, got their asses whooped, got their ass whooped in 1967. Like, these are, no matter how you tell the conflict, you can't change these facts. And I had always in my head, I was like, man, should have taken that deal in 1947. Man, should have taken that deal in 1937. Man, probably would have been best if Egypt just didn't lose Sinai, But like also, I always had this thought in the back of my head, and I think this helped me out more than anything, was I could be wrong about everything. And I still hold that today. You know, I give myself enough doubt to be wrong, right? There's always a chance you're getting something wrong. And lo and behold, I was wrong about, I'd say, at least 85% of what I believed. And there were times where I knew what I believed was wrong, but I would still push it anyway, because it's always the narrative above the facts. When you believe by any means necessary, you don't have a standard for honesty. Like, you don't care about how honest you're going to be, because if your end goal is, you know, free Palestine, whatever the hell that means at this point, because nobody can really tell you, you'll do whatever it takes.
So, from your opinion, is it free Palestine or is it fuck the Jews?
I don't think you can do the first without the latter.
Mm.
That, I mean, to them, that is what it is. It's, you know, it is the only cause.
Right, but do they actually care about freeing Palestine and the Palestinians, or is there more hatred for the Jews than there is love for the Palestinians?
Oh, way more hatred for the Jews. You wake up hating Israel and the Jewish people. You don't wake up like loving the Palestinians. You don't, because like it's funny, because like I will have Lebanese friends that are pro-Palestine, right? But they're like, well, we don't want them in our country. They ruined Lebanon. We don't want them in our country. Like, I'll hear this from Lebanese Shia, from Lebanese Sunnis, from Lebanese Christians, but they're still pro-Palestine. So yeah, like they just hate Jews in Israel. They don't really love the Palestinians. They just want them out of their country, and they feel like they can kick them out of their country once they kick the Jews out of Israel.
How difficult was it for you to pull away from that group, that side?
Oh, very difficult. It was really difficult. I mean, like, man, I'm telling you, these people that I cut off, I thought that they were going to be at my wedding when I got married. I thought they would be around when I had kids. So, but it was hard, but they kept making it easier for me, because I would hear the stuff that they're saying. I would see what they're sending back and forth in the WhatsApp chats. And I remember, like, you know, I was also so I stopped being Muslim, like, around, I want to say, like, February 2024. Like, I just, like, and it wasn't really tied to, like, what happened in October 7th, if I'm being quite honest. It was just, I got so sick of Muslims justifying horrific crap. And there was this moment where, you know, there's this one guy, in the group chat, he didn't know that I'd come from a Christian background. And he shared a video of Muslims, like, burning down churches in Pakistan, right? And they're burning down churches over like a rumor. And he's like, oh, this is what they get for that dude in Sweden who burned, like, the Quran. Like, he thought that was justified. And I was like, oh man, I've really, I put myself in a really lousy position. I can't believe that I was so stupid to come to this point. And so I think leaving Islam also made it really easy for me to leave the pro-Palestinian cause, because it is an inherently Muslim cause. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how many secular Arabs or Christian Arabs or, you know, as a Jews come tell me, oh, no, it's not. No, it is an Islamic cause.
Did you ever gravitate within this group? Was there anybody else who felt like you but didn't have the courage to leave, or did you guys gravitated and maybe talked in private?
There were two. There was my one of my friends in the group chat. Him and I would always chat on the side, and we were like, Hamas are a bunch of idiots. And it was funny because my friend, who was Sunni Muslim, hated Shia, right? So anytime
they hate each other, like, if it wasn't for the Jews, they would kill each other off.
Anytime Israel would hit the IRGC, this guy was like supporting it. But it didn't mean because he liked the Jews. He just hated Shia so much that he was willing to support Israel against Iran. And then I had one other friend. She was Kurdish. She's Kurdish atheist from Iraqi Kurdistan. And she was one of the friends that I thought, like, okay, I'm not going to like cut her off because I feel like her and I have talked enough on the side where she might actually understand where I'm coming from. She ended up unfriending me.
Huh.
So, you know, it's maybe there was somebody there. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't think that they're willing, because for my friend who was Kurdish, for her, like, she couldn't betray her leftist ideals, even though she knew like the Palestinians supported Saddam Hussein, who gassed her own people. And for my friend, he couldn't betray the Muslim Ummah. You know, he couldn't side with the Jews against the Muslim Ummah. So if you're in that cause, the likelihood is that you're probably taking that shit to your grave.
Do you think that this stuff was always this kind of this morality? Because I do believe what you had and what you had inside you is morality that maybe you just pushed to the back of your head. But do you think the morality came from your upbringing as a Christian, and that that seed was kind of always there? Because I'm so curious of what separates you from like the fresh and fit guys, you know, like, I mean, they're nuts. They're nuts.
Because they're idiots and grifters. They're idiots and grifters. That's what separates me. First off, I would say that I've been basically agnostic since I was like 17, right? My parents were pretty right wing, like both of them supported the Iraq War. Now they looking back, they don't think it was such a great idea. But my parents were pretty right wing, so I wouldn't say it was like my Christian upbringing. It was really just like once I started discovering life on my own, being an agnostic and all this, and very live and let live attitude, I think that overcame everything. Because I'm not a religious person, so naturally I'm non-sectarian. I believe in LGBT rights. I'm very socially liberal. So it's weird that like you can't juxtapose these things with the pro-Palestine cause. And especially like if you're somebody who supports like women, life, freedom for Iran, you know, like you support Iranian freedom, it's very difficult to juxtapose that with the pro-Palestinian cause, because the pro-Palestinian cause literally depends on, you know, terror states like Qatar and the IRGC to support the fight against Israel. So it's very hard to juxtapose those two things. It's very hard to sort of align yourself in between those two causes. And so I'd say a lot of just the reason I was able to overcome that is because I grew up first off in Massachusetts, where like almost everybody's like an atheist or agnostic and like, you know, highly skeptical of religion. I'd say that probably helped me out the most to climbing out of that, because most of my Arab Muslim friends, they were religious from birth. You know, they grew up in a religious household. And I grew up in a religious household too, but I hated it. Like they absorbed their religion.
So how's the Israel advocacy going? Would you even call it Israel advocacy, or just standing up for what's right and moral?
I'd say it's both. You know, I would say it's both. I am proud to say that I'm an advocate for Israel. That's the things I'm very, very proud of that. And it is what's right, and it is what's moral. Even if you don't know anything about the conflicts, I could just describe the conflict very simply. There's one side that has had universal suffrage, equal rights for its citizens, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of speech since its inception. And the other side was like throwing gay people off roofs and even throwing each other off roofs. They had the Civil War before they even had their own country. So Israel has never fought another democracy. It's never fought another country whose leader wasn't overthrown or executed or couped or had to flee the country. Israel has never fought another country that respected LGBT rights, had emancipation for their women. I mean, at the end of the day, these things matter. And if I have to ask myself, like, oh, what country in the Middle East would like give me like the same dignity of life that I enjoy here in the United States, it's Israel. It's literally only Israel. Lebanon is the most liberal Arab country, and it still sucks.
I feel you're like an aberration. Is that the correct word? And I hope,
Yeah, I am.
I hope that somebody with money sees you and is like, I'm flying this man to Israel so he can come and see the land that he's fighting for. I'm just saying, and I would
I
love to
hope
meet you
so.
in person.
I hope so.
You're in Jerusalem right now on a teleprompter, but
Oh,
but
dope.
yeah, man. So could you tell me about this Jewish Nakba series you got going?
Yeah, so I've gotten one episode up already. I started off with Iraq. I just wanted to tell the story of the Jews who were forced to leave the Arab and Muslim countries that they had resided in. But I didn't just want to talk about like their expulsion. I also wanted to give like the history of their communities in these countries. And, I wanted to start off with something that, people were somewhat familiar about, which is like Iraq and the Farhud and everything. And I think it's important that people know about this because when you talk about like 1948, people only ever seem to focus on the Arabs that were either fled or were expelled in the 1948 war. People never ever stop to think about, the Jews from Arab and Muslim countries. And the difference is, the Arabs declared war on the Jewish state. The Jews in those Arab countries didn't declare war on anybody, and they were expelled with. They were forced to leave with nothing. Their houses were confiscated. Their assets were confiscated. Like my own mother, okay, she had Jewish neighbors who were forced to leave. Like she remembers this, and she remembers their apartment being looted. And this is the experience for every Mizrahi Jew who had to leave an Arab country was they left the only land that they had known. They were sons and daughters of these lands. And once they left, it was like it's disgusting. Just the looting is probably the most insulting part. That you get looted by your own neighbors after the worst injustice that you could experience was done to you. And you hear this a lot from Jewish voices, and sometimes you hear it from Western non-Jewish voices, but you almost never hear it from Arabic speaking voices. And I feel like I sort of have like a moral obligation to present this information. So, I did Iraq, and right now I'm working on Morocco. I'm going to end it with Egypt, and then, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. Those will be the countries I do in between of that. But it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I want to give the best possible presentation for it.
Are these going to be on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube?
Instagram for sure, TikTok for sure. I think on YouTube, I want to do even longer form content because there's just so much information. And I feel like I do best when I'm allowed to make longer form content. The problem with Instagram is like, if it's over 3 minutes, it won't be recommended to new audiences. But I also don't want to like cut corners with the information. So my Iraq episode was like 7 or 8 minutes long. And I'm sacrificing that being exposed to a new audience, but I also don't want my audience to feel shortchanged about the information that I provide them.
Or,
And it's going to be the same issue with Morocco. Is there's so much information that I feel is important that people know. Maybe I'll do like some snippets, but I'll also upload like an entire episode to give people the full experience.
well, as an Arabic voice, I'm guessing that is that is fighting. I can't get the word out. That is fighting for Israel. I have to imagine you get some hate. So, did you freeze?
No,
No,
I'm
you're
still
there.
here.
Oh, great. You're very good at just being still. If you need a
I've
skill,
heard that before.
um, I had asked you early in an email that I sent. I want to know what your favorite anti-Semitic tweets are that you've gotten, or Instagram comments, TikTok comments.
There's one that just comes to mind, but I'll give you the runner-ups, right? So one is, first off, I always get accused of being Jewish, and so when that happens, I have to show my ancestry test, which comes back as 100% Coptic Orthodox
The
and
tribe,
Coptic
I
Egyptian.
think the tribe would be happy to have you, at least from my
Oh,
standpoint.
like at this point, I've developed an acronym for myself. It's Jewish Adjacent Musri, so I'm the jam, you know?
That's what's up.
And
He's
oh
the
man, it's so corny,
jam.
but I love it.
No, it's great.
I'm the jam, bro. I'm the jam. But so, you know, I'll always put up my ancestry test to debunk people telling me that I'm Israeli or Jewish. And I remember this was recent. The guy came back. His response was that the testing center was owned by Jews. That DNA testing centers are owned by Jews. So you guys are constantly telling Jewish people to take a DNA test, but then when they do a DNA, somebody like me does a DNA test, oh, it's invalid because it was owned by Jewish people.
You can't win, man. You can't win.
Can't win.
It's okay. We own everything
So
apparently, so it's cool.
I've been called a European colonizer.
You
That
look
was stunning.
very European.
I've been called a Mossad agent. And this one's my favorite, though. This one is my favorite. It was the first one that came to mind. I was called a house Negro by a gay white communist.
Impressive.
Yeah. When I read the comment, I remember I was sat there and I looked at the comment for like 5 minutes, just processing that this is a real person and that this is real life, that I'm being called a house Negro by a gay white communist in America who doesn't seem to understand that from Egypt to Syria to Iraq, they were slaughtering communists. Despite being aligned with the Soviet Union, those countries were killing communists left and right.
Do you like
I guarantee you he doesn't know that.
Do you like reply to these people with like snarky comments or stuff? Like I got one comment that was just like the tiny hats at it again. It's like I like you just have to laugh at this.
I either call them incels, because to me anybody with a goofy opinion to me is an incel, or my favorite is I just call them Unrustinians.
Unrustinians. Why
Unrustinians.
why
Unra-Stinians.
yeah,
To me that's what they are. They are Unrustinians.
we're gonna have to like start putting some words in the dictionary from you. We got jam, we got Unrustinians. All right, I do
also
want to
use Unragond.
say this again.
I also every now and then I'll call them Unragondans.
Unragondans.
Doesn't have the same effect, but yeah.
No, I like Unrustinians. Jam is still my favorite out of all the things that you've said to me today. So
Yeah.
but I have this question. I had this question for you. It was, what's a question you're waiting to be asked? And you wrote, if I was prime minister, and I'm guessing you mean prime minister of Israel. If I was prime minister, what would I have done following October 7th?
What I would have done was I would have actually recognized Palestine as a state right then and there. I would have imposed a state on them. And then I would have interpreted October 7th as a declaration of war by that Palestinian state. And I would have told the world, you have 2 weeks to evacuate the women and children. And then after those 2 weeks, anybody who's left in there, and from Gaza to Judea and Samaria, it would have been open season on them.
It's a pretty strong stance. A lot of people would look at you and say, you're going to commit a genocide. Are you okay with committing a genocide?
Here's the thing. I am willing, if I'm Israeli, okay? I am willing to fight them to the extent that they are willing to fight me. And they, in no uncertain terms, they tell you exactly what they want to do to you. They want to annihilate Israel. They want to eliminate Israel. So, and my own personal belief is that, one Jewish state. I don't believe in a Palestinian state. All right. To them, that sounds extreme. To the people that want to literally genocide the Jews, that sounds extreme to them. But I literally mirror their energy just to see how they react. And they just do not understand how stupid and extreme they are. And this is something that Dr. Einat Wilf has said. The international community, since the 67 war, has always tried to prevent an all-out Israeli victory and simultaneously prevent an all-out Arab defeat. Mm-hmm. And that is primarily why the conflict persists to this day. It's because we have not treated the Palestinians the way we treated the Germans or the Japanese following World War II. I mean, they had to eat serious shit, and they understood in no uncertain terms that they were the losers. That is what needs to happen to the Palestinians. And more than just the Palestinians who live in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, for them to understand it, the Palestinian and Arab and Muslim diaspora, they have to understand that they are the losers and that it's game over. Because their diaspora is even worse than the people over there.
I think something that people don't understand or refuse to understand about this, especially because I also have a very what people would probably call a radical view of what should have happened after October 7th. But people don't understand that we wouldn't be attacking them or getting rid of them because of who they are. It would have been because of what they did. There's a difference, and that's not a genocide. You did something to us. You lost any right you had to be there. That's my personal opinion. I could be harsher, but
if they can stay alive by not attacking Israelis, how is it genocide?
It's not. It's just not. I know you have to. I know you have to go soon, but if anybody would stumble upon this episode and happen to make it to the end, what books would you recommend somebody who is questioning or is questioning the same questions that you had in regards to going from one side to the other, going from this anti-Zionist to Zionist? What would you recommend people start to look at?
So I would recommend, actually, go ahead and take this one too. Ghost of a Holy War, because it focuses on Hebron 1929 and it ties it into October 7th. This is a really hard book to get through, though. Just reader beware. It's quite difficult emotionally. It'll tear you apart. And we should all be Zionists. I actually particularly recommend this one to young Jews and Zionists who are entering college. This it's almost like a manual on how to defend Zionism and the Jewish state. And then information-wise, you cannot go, if there's any two books I recommend, it is Industry of Lies by Ben-Dror Yemini and The Right of Return by Dr. Einat Wilf. Must-haves. I just can't describe it in any other way. These two books are must-haves.
Mike, Coptic Zionist, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Send your message to the world.
Bring them back home, defend the Druze, and Am Yisrael Chai.
Amen. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
You are one of a kind.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm trying to change that, though. I'm hoping that I can make it so that I'm not just one of a kind, that there's many of us.
Well, Hashem should bless you and your speech and all the works that you're doing, and I hope that what you have to say does not fall on deaf ears and that you are a vital a vital tool in, swinging this fight in the right direction.
Oh, I will be. We're gonna break Palestine over their fucking heads.
Let's go. Yo,
Let's do this.
I
Actually,
will.
Toda. Thank you so much, bro.
Shali, why? Yes, you have a very special place in my heart, man. If you enjoyed this episode, check out more of the Coptic Zionist on Instagram and TikTok. His ats are in the description below. And make sure to check out his book recommendations by clicking the links in the description. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click that notification bell. You won't want to miss the next edition of the Addison Edition.